and it should be starting now.
All right, so I wanted to introduce myself. I've seen most of you, I think almost all of you before, but for those of you who haven't seen me or don't know me yet, I'm Lauren Barbeau. I'm the faculty developer in the Center for Teaching Excellence. And I want to give you a little bit of background on this workshop and why this workshop, what it is that led me to decide we should have a workshop on recording lectures with whiteboards using Google tools. Well, one, after the spring events, a lot of faculty were without a whiteboard and suddenly scrambling to try and find one. Some people actually bought one so they could record themselves writing on it. But it occurred to us in the center that, hey, there's this really cool Google feature that you can use as a virtual whiteboard space, and it's even collaborative. I think someone has unmuted themselves. Leanne, would you be able to mute yourself, please? Getting a lot of feedback on your end. So yes, one idea behind this was to help faculty navigate this free Google tool that we have, which is called Jamboard, and we will talk about that later on in this particular session. The other thing I wanted to note is that a lot of faculty were wondering how they can record themselves and get things to be closed captioned so it's ADA compliant. Now we do have Kaltura, and that's embedded in Folio, and many of you are familiar with Kaltura and use Kaltura, and I've had some faculty ask in this workshop before, is Kaltura no good? Are you telling me I shouldn't use Kaltura? Absolutely not. If you like Kaltura and it's meeting your needs, by all means, go for it. The goal is not to say you should be using this, not that. It's to give you options to meet your particular needs. So there is no reason you should switch to Google Meet if you like what Kaltura is doing. With that said, I will point out that some faculty have told me that recording things this way and then uploading it through YouTube actually ends up with better auto captioning than Kaltura does. So that might be a reason that you look into using the tools we're going to talk about today instead of Kaltura. But just so you know, we're going to talk about 3 Google tools today. We're going to start by talking about Google Meet, which is how we're having this meeting right now. Then we're going to talk about Google Jamboard, and then we're going to spend some time talking about YouTube, although really what I'm going to do there is direct you towards the CTE's guide for uploading your videos to YouTube for auto captioning. So we're not going to spend a lot of time on YouTube today, but those are the tools we're going to mention. You all have access to these tools, and I'll share my screen in a moment to show you how you get access to them. But before we do that, I want to touch on the learning outcomes for today's session. So by the end of today's session, you will be able to set up a Meet recording for yourself. What we're going to cover today is a personal Meet session, not a group Meet session. Same thing, just no one else shows up. The other thing we're going to do is we're going to share screens and record PowerPoint presentations or virtual whiteboard demos through Google Meet. So we're going to show you how to do that. And then we're going to touch a little bit on how you can upload videos to YouTube for easy captioning, with the ultimate goal of today's session being that you can decide, make educated and informed decisions about which technologies most meet your needs for recording videos with lectures and whiteboards. All right, so let's go ahead and get started. I am going to share my screen so you can see what it is that we are working on here today. And I think it's still working, but you should all be able to see my screen at this point. It's just my lovely Google homepage with lots of colorful flowers on it. Unless I hear any objections, I'm going to assume that we're all seeing this. Okay. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to navigate to Google Meet. So there are a couple of different ways that you can access Google Tools, and if you're proficient with Google Tools, you can just, zone out for a second while I show people the different ways you can access them. The first option is with the Google App Launcher, the Waffle, or as I prefer to call it, the Google Grid, because it's alliteration, and everything should alliterate when possible, because I'm an English teacher. Your options are right here. For me, I've moved these around. So if you get into your waffle, it'll look a little bit different than mine does, because if you click and drag, you can move things. So I've organized them based on what I tend to use the most. So Meet might not be in the same place for you as it is for me. So I can go there and I can easily start a Meet right now. That's one option. Or if I go to email, I have an option to start a meeting right from my email. And it's going to take me to the start screen. So I can just start this right now. I don't have to put a title in. I don't have to invite anyone else. And the third option, if you aren't familiar, is to do that from your calendar. So I will show you. This particular meeting is embedded in a calendar invite, but if I wanted to start a meeting, let's say that I want to do my own personal recording at 4 o'clock. If I want to put this on my calendar so that people aren't scheduling over my scheduled recording time, I can actually put it on my calendar and embed the Google Meet just like that. So 3 easy ways to start a Google Meet. I'm going to go ahead and jump over here and start a Meet. Can you folks see this screen? Or I'm guessing that you can't because I didn't share that window, right? Teresa, can I get a response? Are you seeing the Meet that I
Yes.
started?
No, we're
You
not
are.
seeing your.
Okay, you're not seeing that.
No.
Okay, so I'm going to stop presenting and I'm going to try presenting this window instead. Okay.
Yes.
Let me know
It's
you're seeing it.
uploading. Okay. Perfect.
Okay. So what's nice about Meet is it allows me to have 2 of them going at the same time, which Zoom does not allow you to do. So if you're trying to train someone to use Zoom, you try to set up a different Zoom, it apparently gives you an error message. That's what's great about Google Meet. We can have a Meet within a Meet. So you'll notice on my screen, you should be watching me right now. We're going to go through a couple of the options you have here in Meet by yourself. You have pretty much all the same options you would if you're in a group meeting like we are right now. But we'll go down here. And if you want someone to join your meeting, you have that information. But since we're really just focusing on personal information, we're going to move over to this side and look at the features we have down here. So you'll notice if I move the mouse away, eventually this white bar down here will disappear. So if some of you are wondering where that bar is because you don't have one, just hover down at the bottom and it'll pop back up. So one of the things I want to note is that even if you turn on closed captionings in your personal Meet session, Meet is not going to record those closed captionings. So you do need to go through the step of uploading it to YouTube if you want to make your video ADA compliant, which you do because, you know, it's the law. We'll talk about present now in a second, but right now I want to look at the 3 dot options, which in Google always means more. So right now we're not really interested in these options. You do usually want to check your settings to make sure that you're using the mic and the speakers that you want, as well as to make sure that you're using the right camera. So I've got at least 2 cameras and 3 mics attached to this crazy setup I have going on here. So it's always good to get in and make sure that you you check out the situation in here. I'll give you a really sad personal example. If any of you are in the Flex Ed course, you'll see that I've recorded a welcome video, and I actually recorded it with Google Meet. I recorded that video 10 times before I decided I liked it. And here's the sad part. I recorded a perfect first take, exactly the way I wanted it, followed my talking points, like really good, right? Well, then the Meet saved to my Google Drive, because that's where your saved Google Meets go, into your Google Drive. And when I listened to it, it had no audio. So I checked my computer and made sure all my audio was on and that I wasn't just, you know, crazy. And as it turns out, I did not check my mic settings before I recorded that video. And so I recorded a perfect take with no audio. Then it took me 9 more takes to get something I was satisfied with. So always check your settings. That's the bottom line here. So if you want to record your personal Meet session, all you need to do is go here and click record. It's going to ask you for your consent. Hopefully you are consenting to your own recording. But now I'm recording a Meet within a recorded Meet. This is getting really meta, right? If I want to present my screen, I can do that here. I have a couple of options. If you're going to be jumping around from screen to screen, you probably want to share your entire screen, because notice when I just shared with you my one screen, you could not see the Google Meet screen. But I do have some sensitive capstone reflections open that I don't want to accidentally show you, so I don't want to give you the whole screen. But you can just select a window instead. So you can choose from the windows you have available. And let's see, I'll share my calendar screen with you. I just want to show you what this is going to look like if you're in here alone. So we've started recording, and when you're doing this recording right now, it's going to look like it's not recording your face because your face is up here in the corner. But when you finish your recording and it finishes processing and goes into your Google Drive, your face is going to appear right beside your screen share. So you will be able to share with folks what you're looking at and what you're narrating, as well as your face. So that's one of the features that I do like about recording with Google Meet. You can do the same thing with Zoom if you prefer Zoom. One of the things that we found out is that Zoom doesn't record your face next to your screen share. It's only going to record your screen share. And best practice is really to let students see both you and what it is you're narrating as much as possible. And this technology does make that possible. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and stop this recording. Just hit the stop recording button. Okay, so it gives me this note down here that says the recording will be saved to Google Drive. Once it is saved, I will get a notification to my email that says it's been saved to Google Drive. So we will take another look at this video later on, just so you know what that looks like. But I wanted you to see how you can record a Google Meet and set one up. It's very easy. So that's one of the reasons I like using Google Meet is it doesn't take a whole lot of effort to use. I'm going to pause now and ask if there are any questions. You can unmute yourself. You can type them into chat for Teresa. We'll make sure that we answer those. Okay, hearing none, I will add a couple of notes about Meet recordings. So they are saved as an MP4 file. This is an advantage because the other file format you can save in is a .mov file. It's not as versatile. There are some platforms that will not take a .mov file. So if you're an Apple user, you have an iPhone or a Mac, sometimes recording with the built-in software may not be compatible with wherever you're trying to share this information with students. It should be compatible with YouTube and with Folio, but I just want to put it out there as an advantage to using Google Meet. It does record as an MP4 file. The other thing I'll point out is that that screen share option, I can share anything with you. So I can share PowerPoint slides, I can share a website. Again, if you've watched the welcome video in the Flex course, you'll see that I'm showing you how to navigate some of the features of the Folio course. So that is a screen share. But you also can share a Google Whiteboard, a virtual space where students can collaborate, or where you can just talk over PowerPoint slides or any sort of writing you want to do in that whiteboard space. So we're going to take a moment and move over to look at Jamboard. So I'm going to close out of this Meet. Remember, if I were going to continue recording this, I would continue to present now and share my screen, and I would just share with you my Jamboard screen. So I want to make a note of that. I don't need 2 recordings of this, so I ended that. If you are going to use this, note that it can take up to, I think the longest it's taken is 40 minutes for my video to process. So video processing can take a while if Google is backed up for any particular reason, which sometimes that happens. Don't worry, it'll come back. You just need to look for it. Okay, so I'm going to open a new window and share that with you. Okay, So remember how we navigated to Google Meet the first time by going to the waffle Google grid up here. This is also where Jamboard is located. If you haven't used Jamboard before, it might be all the way down here below the line. Jamboard isn't one of the tools that most people are more familiar with. I've moved it up here because it's something we've been doing some training on and something we've been playing with in the office. So you'll see that mine is more visible. And this is something where you can play along. You can either start your own Jamboard as you watch me do this, or I'm going to give you the link because this is, like all other Google tools, a collaborative space. So while this presentation in particular is not on using Jamboard collaboratively, you could use this collaboratively if you chose to for other purposes. Okay, so you should be seeing the blank Jamboard now. And I'm going to hit share. And I'm going to change your access so that you're all going to be editors of this link when you get it. So if you look over in chat, you should be seeing the link. Okay. So you can go ahead and get in there if you want to play around with it. I see that a couple of you are already in there. So I'm going to cover some of the features of Jamboard that you can use when you're sharing this in Meet or when you're working collaboratively with students, or even if you're just playing around with it for your own mind mapping purposes. So the first thing I'll point out are the features over here. This is your pen, and you have different color options as well as different pen options. So if I want to use my brush to draw a nice flower, I can do that. One thing I'll point out about using any sort of virtual whiteboard space is it works a lot better when you're using a pen to go with it. So I'm using my mouse right now. I do have a pen attached to this setup, but I've kind of got my computer set up in a weird way, so it's hard to get to the tablet screen. So if you're going to do this extensively, I would recommend that you have some sort of a touchscreen device. It can be a tablet, it can be a 2-in-1, it can be a laptop with a touchscreen. You can even use your phone, although that's a little bit more complicated for the setup. It's going to be too small of a screen. But anything that you can write on, if you want to write on a virtual whiteboard, you're going to want that Bluetooth pen to go with it. So if your device is not Bluetooth compatible, it's probably not going to work. If your device is Bluetooth compatible and has a touch screen, you can probably buy your own pen if your device didn't come with it. So we have our pen options, but we also have our erase options. This is not how I would erase the entire frame. I could go up here to clear frame if I want to. This is just going to give me my pointer again if I lose my pointer. I noticed that Holly, who is our Google expert in the room, so if I say anything wrong, Holly's going to be like, no, that's not right. So I hope you will, Holly, anyway. We have our sticky notes we can play with over here. We have different colors if we want to use a colored sticky note. So let's say we're going to go with pink. And we're going to save that. And now I can just click off of that. I can move it. I can make it larger or smaller. I can rotate it any way I want. And if I want to, I can duplicate this multiple times if for some reason I need to do that. I can also add images into my Jamboard. So I can upload an image directly from my file. I can pull one from Google Drive, or I can pull one from Google Photos. Notice apparently I have a lot of emojis. So here I am. This is my little person emoji. But I wanted to show you this other feature, which is Google Image Search, which Holly actually told me about. I learned this from one of her workshops. You'll see this in a lot of Google tools that allow you to import images. What's nice about the Google Image Search is it's only going to select images that have a license that makes it shareable. So it's going to be easier to find things that are not copyrighted, things that you can reuse if you're searching for a particular image. So let's just go ahead and say we're going to look for the state of Georgia. Okay, that's the country. There we go. We'll put the state of Georgia in here. So these are images that it's going to be okay for you to use and to share. And that's what's nice about using the Google search feature. I'm going to delete it because it's taking too long to load. The last option you have over here is your laser pointer. So if you, for instance, were sharing any sort of slides and you wanted to be able to emphasize things without them sticking, this is a really nice way to emphasize particular words or images to point to things. Yes, Florida, the epicenter of disease. You can point to that right there. Those are your features that you have over here. I'll note some of the features you have in terms of background. Backgrounds are nice if, for instance, you're working with charts and graphs and you need that graphing paper. You have a couple of different graphing paper options, as well as different color options. So if your eyes get fatigued by looking at a whiteboard, you can use a blackboard instead. You also have a nice lined paper if you want to try writing things. It's kind of small to try writing with a pen. I have tried. Even with a pen, it's a little too small for me. But I wanted you to see that that is an option. You also have zoom options up here if you want to see something a little bit better, or if you want to emphasize something for your students while you're recording this share. Okay. Notice up here you have an option to expand the frame. This is going to show you all of the whiteboard pages that you currently have in your set. So if I want to, I can click forward to create a new frame. So now we have 2 frames in our Jamboard. So this is nice if you're going to use PowerPoint slides and you want to put them in here. There is a video on how to do that in the Flex course. It's in Module 3, Recording Video. So be sure to check that out if you're interested in knowing how you can embed your PowerPoint in Jamboard so you can write on it easily. This is also nice, though, if you want to create a record. So say that you are just doing a straight up lecture with whiteboard, and you want to be able to save your lecture notes without having to clear the frame. So if I clear the frame now, we're going to lose everything. And there's not going to be a nice record of what it is that we did in our session if I want to post that online for students. If I hit next frame, we're going to have a whole bunch of frames in this series. And then I can download and save as a PDF and easily upload that to Folio so that students have the entire pack of whiteboard notes along with the video that we've captured. Are there questions? No questions. You guys are flying through this training, so we might spend a little bit more time on YouTube than I anticipated just because the session is going very quickly. Okay. All right, so let's move on then to taking a look at our recording, which should be ready by now. So, like I said, you will get an email. Let's see if we've gotten the email just so you see what that looks like.
Hey, Lauren, we've
So
got a
notice,
few questions popping up in chat that I thought might be
okay,
perfect before we transitioned.
yes,
The first one was that Leanne says the screen gets a little small in the middle of the canvas when you're recording just your one screen. Could you talk about that a little bit?
just small window. Okay, so Leanne, you can zoom in to, oh, you're talking about your view of my particular screen?
Correct,
Or you're
the
talking,
Google
okay.
Meet screen.
So if you're talking about my particular screen, you can maximize that window and you should be able to zoom in. It is one of the downsides is it's a little hard to see the present now screen. So if you want, you can maximize that window and that should help to some extent. I don't know if that answers your question entirely.
Okay,
Yeah,
and
if
then
you change the settings, Candy's right. If you change the settings on the screen to spotlight me, then you'll see me bigger. Estelle is asking about the part about recording a Jamboard. So Estelle, I'll go back and I'll point out that we did that through a Meet. So what we did is we went here to Meet, and I'm going to start a meeting. And I'll just go ahead and show you what it looks like to share a Jamboard screen. So let's say I go over here and I start a new, I can also start a Jamboard from over here. I start a new Jamboard here. If I go over here to my test meet and I click present now, I can select a window, and I'm going to select this window, and I'm going to hit share. If I wanted to record a Jamboard, what I would do now is I'd navigate over here to my untitled jam, and I would begin writing on it after I hit record. Let's not miss this step about record. So make sure that your Jamboard is set up with any images, slides, whatever it is you want to put on there. If you just want a blank whiteboard space, you don't need to do any prep. But if I go ahead and go to record meeting right now and I'm presenting this particular screen, that's what Google's going to put in the present window. So you're going to see my face next to the screen that I was sharing. You can share anything you want in there. Like I said, you can share a Jamboard, you can share notes, you can share PowerPoints through Google Slide or PowerPoint or whatever it is you use to present your slides. Prezi, if anybody still does that. Screen share just means you select a window on your computer and you share it. So if you select the Jamboard window, that's how you're going to share, and that's how you're going to record in your Google Meet when you go to present this. Does that make sense, Estelle? So there is no video of Jamboard. It's Meet recording the Jamboard. Okay, that makes sense.
Mm-hmm. And Beth had a question. Can you embed a Jamboard into a module for students to paste on asynchronously? Would it be to create a link to access the Jamboard?
So this is bonus info, Beth. I'm going to take a moment out since we are running fast. We have time for me to show you this. And I'm going to go to a test course. Let me see what I have in the sandbox. There it is. Just so I don't mess up any of my courses that are currently in progress. Let's go into content and I'm going to add a module just so I know I can delete it later. So are we seeing my not Blackboard? We don't do Blackboard here. We do Folio. Teresa,
Yeah,
are we seeing?
you're seeing your folio, and I see you've made a module about Jamboard.
Perfect. I'm sharing so many screens that I forget which screen I'm sharing where. So I want to make sure before I talk you all through this, you can actually see it. So I've got my Jamboard module. If I go to add existing activities, there is now this option to add something from Google Drive. So if I go here and I call this my test jam, I can search for test jam, see if it comes up. It does not. Let's try that again. It should be saved under my generic drive. There we go. Let's put this one in. It's going to change the permissions so anybody can view it. But now if I go to my Jamboard, there's my untitled jam. I go in. This works so well with everything else. So basically what I can tell you is this works great with docs. It works great with Excel. I have not tried it with a Jamboard before, but apparently it does not work with a Jamboard. I can even, if you've taken the Flex course, you might have noticed that I made some updates to the action plan so that they are now embedded. They don't link you out to a different place. So I'll go to that and show you what that looks like when something embeds correctly in Google. So if we go to this page that's right before the action plan, if I click next, the action plan is now embedded, so it doesn't link you out. I know some of you, like Estelle, you completed this before I had actually made this update, but I found out you can embed Google Tools directly into Folio modules, and they are fully editable. So you can go ahead and you can get in here and you can edit this action plan straight from Folio without having to link out to a separate form page. So yes, this works with Google Tools to embed straight in Folio. It doesn't seem to be working here with Jamboard, and that might be because Jamboard is one of the newer, less used tools. What I can tell you, Beth, is that if there's an option to pull embed code, which it doesn't look like there is, the other way to get things from a Google tool into Folio is to go to the embed code. So if you know how to pull embed codes and get things into Folio that way, that's oftentimes another workaround if Google tools aren't embedding properly. But this doesn't look like they've done Jamboard yet. Yeah. Unfortunately, if you want to share a collaborative Jamboard in Folio, it does still look like you're going to have to pull this link and you're going to have to share it in Folio. So what I would do is create a separate assignments page and give the instructions on that page and then the link to Jamboard. So yeah, that's unfortunate because it would be very cool if this was something that we could embed right in Folio. But thank you for asking that because that's a really good question. I'll continue to play with that a little bit more just to see if there's a workaround that I can find. Melissa's asking, what if you have a YouTube video? Melissa, can you be more specific in terms of you just want to embed a YouTube video in Folio? Is that what you're asking? You're really, really far away and can't really hear you.
No,
No.
not yet.
Lauren, I think are you there? Can you hear me?
Yes, we
Yes.
can hear you.
Lauren, I think what she's asking is, can you insert like YouTube videos on a Jamboard? Maybe.
Oh, okay. Can you just give us a yes, Melissa? Like a written one? Because we still can't hear you. We're going to assume that that's what Melissa was asking us. And the answer is
The solution to Beth's question.
That is actually even more enigmatic than the previous responses. Okay, to link to it by YouTube. I think Beth was asking if you can embed a Jamboard session in Folio that would be fully editable, not just to watch it. Like to actually have students be able to interact in the whiteboard through Folio. Yeah, so I think it's a little bit different question than what you're answering. But Candy brings up a good question about whether you can embed video into a jam. And the answer is no. I have not seen an option to embed a video that will play in a jam. So for instance, if I wanted to do a slideshow where I could write on my slides, if I wanted to show a video, I would need to have that video open in a different browser window up here or a different tab so that I could hop over there and show it. So that is one drawback. It's not going to be seamless if you're trying to show videos with jams and Meet. You're going to have to do a little bit of hopping around. But I think that's going to be the case for most of what you're doing. If you want to embed a video that will play in a presentation session, you can. You would do that by sharing Google Slides or a PowerPoint presentation instead and playing the video. I will note that some instructors want to do this, but it's not really best practice to play a video within your own video, just because the closed captioning isn't going to work super well on that, and it's going to be less ADA compliant. If you want to show a video along with your lecture, it's best that you embed that video separately in the folio page. So even if that was possible in Jamboard, if you're using it to record, that's not what I would recommend that you do. If you're using it to collaborate and show a video, I can understand why that would be a limitation. Hopefully that answers the questions. Okay. So I'm going to go ahead and close these. Unfortunately, this doesn't look like it worked out well for us in terms of being able to share a collaborative whiteboard space in Folio. But my Meet recording is ready. So if I go over here, I can link directly to it, or I can open it in my drive. So I'm not going to play it, but what I'll need to do if I want to upload it to YouTube is I'll go ahead and download it. And now we're going to go over to YouTube. So if you haven't used YouTube before, I find that initially it's less intuitive than some of the other Google tools are to use. For me at least, I found the most learning curve to be with YouTube. Maybe that's because I haven't used it as long. I am not a YouTuber or an influencer of any kind. So I'm not super familiar with posting videos, but it's pretty easy to learn, and we're all in a position where we are learning. So I've downloaded my video, and if I go up here to upload, I can upload my video, or I can go live, which means I can record that now, which I guess if you're really brave, you can do that. But remember, you're not going to have any of the screen share options. So now I'll select my files, if I can find it. There it is. Okay. All right. Now it's going to take a couple minutes for YouTube to upload my video. This one is short, so it's going to go quickly. I recommend that if you're using this, you should keep your videos short, because longer videos, I think I had a faculty member who was trying to upload an hour-long video, and she said, well, it's taking forever. I said, yeah, that's a lot of bandwidth. It's also not best practice to upload really, really long videos. We do recommend, and all of the research is recommending, that you keep your videos somewhere between, I don't know, 7 to 10 minutes. I've read different things in terms of length of attention span. I think the most recent thing I read was 8 minutes is the max for a video. That was the most recent. So take that for what it's worth, but I definitely wouldn't recommend posting a video that's over 15 minutes long. There's a significant drop off once you start posting videos that are longer than 15 minutes. And honestly, there's a significant drop off even at 10 minutes. So keep that in mind as you're posting your videos. It's also going to make it easier to upload. So notice that it took time to upload, but it's also now got a process. So it's in the system, but YouTube has to do some processing to get it there. So right now I can work on putting in this information into YouTube. Test session, we'll call it. If I want to give it a description, I can do so here, just so students know what it is that they're watching. If I have YouTube channels, this also makes things a little bit clearer. But I'm going to skip that since I don't really care about it right now. Notice that it's finished processing. And when it's fully loaded, it's going to give me different options for the thumbnail. The thumbnail is what you see when your video hasn't started yet. So if you noticed when we went to my video, there's this lovely shot of me flailing my hands, which I do a lot. But that's not the shot that I want you to see when you come to YouTube and look at my video. So I might instead choose to upload a thumbnail. Yeah, none of those are flattering things that I want people to see when they come to my YouTube video.
Hey, Lauren, Leanne has a request if you could actually max the screen that you're sharing right there. Perfect.
Does
Thank
that
you.
help? Okay.
Mm-hmm.
It's not letting me upload one, but I can choose these different videos. I recommend that you instead upload a thumbnail. It's going to look nicer. Again, if you watched the Flex video in that course, it was not the most flattering image that it had, so I just took a still from that particular video and I made a thumbnail of it and I uploaded it. That's how we got something that doesn't have me, looking like this. Something that's a little bit more professional. If you have a PowerPoint slide, for instance, that has your college's name on it or your department or your course, you can upload an image that you made either through PowerPoint or one of my favorite tools, Canva. You'll want to make it presentation size though, and that would upload very nicely to a thumbnail and would allow you to have a card at the beginning of your video that says what the video is that they're watching, what class it's for, who the instructor is, that sort of information. So down here, you have an option to say whether this is made for kids or not. You're going to select no. That doesn't mean that your video has things that students shouldn't be seeing or kids shouldn't be seeing. It just means that this is not something that should go on the kids version of YouTube. So there is like, I don't know, my nieces and nephews are addicted to whatever kids YouTube there is. And this is a way that it filters what videos are available to kids on those YouTube stations.
Hey,
And
Lauren.
yeah.
Sorry, we've got a question from Estelle. How do you make a thumbnail from a photo?
From a photo?
That's how she phrased, but I think her general question is, how do you create a thumbnail? And I posted thumbnail YouTube sizes in the chat window.
Well, I don't really want to give you all my phone number right now, but for whatever reason, it won't let me upload a thumbnail because I have verified my account, but it's saying I haven't. So we're not going to do that right now. But Estelle was asking how you make a thumbnail from a photo. Estelle, you can just upload a photo and it'll work. Yeah, I was going to show you, but I don't want to go through the process of having to verify right now because it's going to take a moment to do that. So if you have a photo, all you need to do is upload it. So just note that the image should be either an image file or a PNG or a JPEG, something like that it can use. So that's what you're going to upload as the thumbnail. You might need to work with dimensions. I will give you, in the chat window, I've shared canva.com. Teresa has shared ideal pixel sizes as well as ratios. I typically use Canva to do all of my design work. So if I wanted to make a nice placard to put at the front of my video, I would do it in Canva. It's easier for me. It's fairly intuitive to learn to use as opposed to some of the Adobe suite, which we all have access to, but I don't have sufficient training to work in Adobe very quickly. And if you don't, Canva is the solution for you. If you just have an image, oh, and yes, Teresa, important part is it's free. And if you are an educator, you can get an educator's account through Canva, and that'll give you access to some of their free upgrades, which are great. But if you just have an image, any sort of image, as long as it's the right file type, it will upload, Estelle. But beware of the image ratios, because if you upload a vertical picture of yourself, it's going to stretch you to fit the entire window, which you probably don't want. That's not going to be a flattering look for anybody. Okay, hopefully that answers your question. Okay, so we're going to go back over here and I'll mention playlists. If you use YouTube extensively, I would recommend creating playlists. So if you're not going to use it extensively, you don't need to. But playlists really, I guess the easiest way to think about them if you're not familiar with them is to think of them as folders that you're putting your YouTube videos under. So if someone wants to watch all of our videos on teaching with technology, for instance, if we created a playlist, all of those would be housed in one location and they'd actually autoplay one after another so that there's an entire playlist of teaching with technology videos. So it's a way of organizing things to make it easier for your viewers to go through your videos. Okay, I'm going to go through more options just so you know what's there. I doubt any of you are getting paid promotions. If you are, good for you. That would be a great asset, but I doubt you are. If you have tags that you want to put on your video, you can, but please note that tags are really only useful if you're going to make your video public. Tags make it easier to find your video. So if you're not going to make your video public, which I don't typically recommend, but that's up to you, you can put tags on it to make it easier for other people to find it. We will talk about visibility settings in step 3 though, so hold on and we'll get there. You do want to go to advanced to make sure that you select the right language for your closed captioning. YouTube is going to try to figure it out, but if they can't, they won't caption it. So it's best just to go down here and select your language. It makes it a little bit easier. And I'll actually select United States English to make it more specific so that it knows what my accent is and makes it easier. Okay. The closed caption verification is not something you need to worry about because it's unlikely that anything you're putting on YouTube has aired on television before. If for some reason you want students to know when or where something was recorded, you can upload or you can add that information here, but it's not necessary. I'll take a minute to talk about license and distribution. So you have two options here. One is the standard YouTube license, which basically means this is your intellectual property and people can't edit it, reuse it, recycle it. They can embed and link to it, sure, but they're not going to be able to repurpose or use snippets in their own YouTube videos. If you do a Creative Commons attribution, what this means is that people can kind of reuse, remix, recycle your videos. So if I only want the first 5 minutes of your 10-minute lecture, if you've put a Creative Commons license on there, I can edit that down to the 5 minutes I want. And it's fine if I reshare that in my own video or on my own station. So that's what a Creative Commons attribution would be. A standard YouTube license is just going to give you more control over your intellectual property. So that's up to you. You do want to make sure that you allow embedding. If you don't allow embedding, it's going to be impossible to pull this into Folio. So make sure that the embedding is on. If anyone is subscribing to your feed, you can have it send a push notification. That's really if you're an advanced YouTube user and you have subscriptions and you post a lot of videos. For most of us, you're not going to need that. You can change the category of your video if you want to do that. So education is an option. We'll put it under education. And I prefer to turn off the show how many viewers like and dislike this video. If you really want that kind of feedback from your students, feel free to leave it on. I also disable comments on my videos, but you have a couple of different options there in terms of holding comments for review or allowing all comments. So to me, I prefer to just turn that off and not deal with it. The next option here is to add an end screen. So I'm not going to talk about cards because that's something related to promotions and that's not something you need to worry about. But if you want to put an end screen, this is kind of like putting that beginning screen, the thumbnail on there, you can do that. But this is more about promoting related content. So if you've ever watched YouTube videos that at the end have this screen where they've got like 9 different videos that they're recommending you watch, that's what this is going to be. And if you have other videos that are related to that video, you might want to do that. Say, you know, if this didn't help, go to these other videos on this topic. Or even if there are other YouTube videos out there, like a chemistry demonstration, and you want to direct students to some of those resources, you can do that by adding an end screen. But I'm going to skip over that. Visibility is where you decide what kind of access people are going to have to your video. So if something is private, only you are going to be able to see your video and specific people you choose. So if I just put the link on Folio or if I just embed the code on Folio, private is not going to allow people to see that. So if you want private, that's something that you can do and you can share with, I would have to input Teresa's name or something like that. If I want students to be able to view it but I don't want them to be able to find it on YouTube. So just general go in and search for this and find it. I put it as unlisted. Unlisted allows me to pull the embed code and put it in Folio. And I'll talk more about that in a second. I'll actually hop into Folio since we have some time and show you why it's important that you pull the embed code and not just try to find the video, because you're not going to find it if it's unlisted. Public means that everybody can see it. It's out there. All of the world can access it. So I prefer to set my videos to unlisted. I don't want people outside of Georgia Southern seeing them. I really don't want people outside of the Flex course seeing them. If you want to, you can schedule this video, but I would recommend instead that you schedule things through Folio. So are there questions at this point? Once you've saved your video, here's the link. But remember, we've set it to unlisted. We need the embed code if we're going to put it in Folio. This link will not be enough. If I go to the embed code, this is what I want to save. So I'm going to copy that and we'll put it in Folio. So one of the things I can't do right now is show you how the closed captioning edits work, because it takes YouTube, it can take a couple hours, up to 24 hours, just again, depending on how busy they are, to put closed captioning on a video. They are going to do that for you, but you might want to edit that because they're not always perfect, especially if you have a dialect or accent that it doesn't easily recognize. So you can edit those, but you don't have to. I'll put that out there. ADA compliance says that auto captions are sufficient to meet the needs of learners with specific ability requests. So if you're just inundated with videos and you can't get to updating your closed captions, it's better to make the videos and have auto captioning than just say, I can't update them, so I'm not going to make videos. You can always go back and edit video captions as you have time, which we do recommend. But please be aware that not being able to edit them in real time should not be a barrier to uploading these videos. They're very important to student learning, especially when we're in these weird times of flex or online, or I don't know what we're doing. Students need to see your face, they need to hear your voice. That's how they're going to feel your presence. Are there questions at this point? So otherwise, we're going to go to Folio and look at how you embed something. Okay. For those of you who are familiar with embedding YouTube videos, this may be old news. For those of you who are used to searching for them, this might be new. But I want to make sure that you know how to share that YouTube video once you've gone through the process of making it. So we're going to go to New, and I'm going to say Create a File. And if you've never done this before, I'll show you just quickly how you put the template in there. Well, I guess the template's not in this particular shell. Well, you would do it here if you had it downloaded and uploaded into this shell, but it's not here. So if I want to upload a video, if I go to YouTube and I just search, okay, my video is called Test Session Lauren Barbeau. It's not showing me what I want because this video is set to unlisted, so it's not searchable. So if I just try to go to insert YouTube, you're not going to find it. What I need to do is go to insert embed code. So that code that I copied, I'm going to paste here. And you might want to change the settings. So that's 800 and I think like 460. That just makes the window a little bit bigger. And then I can insert it. So now my video, if I save and close, I have to put a title on it, is going to play directly in my Folio window. So it's going to be directly embedded in my module. It's important to note here that when we tried to search for this, you couldn't find it because of that unlisted setting. So you do need to make sure you're pulling the embed code. But just so you have an opportunity to see what a meet looks like, I'm going to mute this so we don't get tons of feedback. let's go to the part where we're sharing the screen. Okay, so notice that you now have my face next to the screen that I'm sharing. We can make that bigger. My face is still a little small, but you can see me and you can hear me. So it's a very nice way of making sure that students have that social presence through video. And I like Meet because it does allow for my face as well as a screen share, and it works very nicely with all of these other Google tools, YouTube as well as Jamboard. If you aren't using Jamboard, you could use Google Slides. Really, that screen share option allows you to show folks anything that you want them to see in this window here. All right, so we are coming to the end of our time. Pam asked a question. I used to embed videos in PowerPoint for students and for my PowerPoint lectures, and no longer do they transfer. Is embedding them this way different? Pam, I would recommend instead of embedding them in your PowerPoints that you embed them in your modules. It depends on how you're sharing your PowerPoint slides with students. If you're uploading them as PDFs to Folio, then the PDFs are not going to play the videos. You would need to embed a hyperlink to the video that students could click on and link out to. That should work if you're embedding PowerPoint slides as a PDF. And I'm pretty sure that the only way you can embed PowerPoint slides or upload them to Folio, not embed, but upload them to Folio is as images or as PDFs. So images, everything's going to be flat. Like your hyperlinks are going to work. Yeah. If
I
you're
know it's like this just started, and I don't know if I was also getting a message about something about flash driver, blah blah blah. But I use the PowerPoints would be narrated and saved now as PowerPoint shows. But I used to, so sometimes I would use that same narrated lecture, only I'd turn the narration off in class. So it used to be I could just click on the video when we got to that slide and it would play. But now when I'm copying the embed code and trying to insert it as a media option into the PowerPoint, it just says cannot do this. So something's different, but I thought maybe it was.
Pam, we're going to need to talk about that separately.
Yeah, that's something different. Sorry.
Yeah, we'll talk about that later at some point. So please either email myself or Laura Lowe Reefer, who's she's typically on these sessions with me. She is really much more of a Folio expert than I am and can probably answer that for you. Yeah. For those of you who are working towards, no problem. For those of you who are working towards badges, I have embedded the link here. I've put it in the chat to the action plan form. So you can go ahead and fill that out. This is a Teaching with Technology workshop. We covered a lot of ground here. So if you have questions at some point about how to use or why to use these tools, please do feel free to reach out to me. I'm happy to talk more. And again, I'll point out that this workshop isn't necessarily meant to tell you don't use Kaltura or we don't like Kaltura. It's going to give you different options. It's a different way of doing things. So if you've had frustrations with Kaltura, this is an alternative that you can check out. So I welcome your questions, but for now we're going to stop the recording.